from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after, it seems like a little bit of a Christmassy night. Wouldn't you say? Strange things happening, the turkey legs catching up to certain people. Don't get me wrong. I think the Winnipeg Jets were no doubt the better team of these two teams here tonight. That doesn't show on the scoreboard, and as good as they were, maybe you could argue Connor Bedard was the best player on the ice tonight. Maybe not. Vladislav Nemeskov having an absolutely great game. Nino Niederreiter, I thought, looked great. Morgan Barron in the fourth line looked phenomenal. This was Connor Bedard just having that ability to finish in a spectacular manner. I know people don't like it when you go on and on about the opposition's players, but Connor Bedard's special case, we should probably talk about him a little bit. I absolutely love the first goal that he scores. This is a player who came into the league, and a lot of people were questioning whether he would be big enough to survive at the NHL level. I think right off the bat, every time you see a first-round pick coming in who's under 6 feet tall, everyone assumes right off the bat that player is not going to be able to handle the rigors of the NHL. What I love about that first goal is not only does he show the skill that he's capable of, getting that shot on the net in tight, changing the angle, putting it in a place where, some of the other Jets who are around him, 3 of them surrounding him, couldn't get to the puck, going in between his legs. But it's the kind of bulldog tenacity with which he just keeps going and going and going at that puck. He will not be denied. These are the kind of goals we've talked about before, that if you're a Chicago Blackhawks fan, yeah, the playoffs aren't going to happen for you this year, but someday they will. And it's good to know you've got a guy like Connor Bedard, who's a star, who can not only score the really nice goals that we've seen him score in the past, but the kind of goals where you just grind it to the front of the net, get to the inside on a team that is one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult teams in the NHL to get to the inside on in the Winnipeg Jets. But I just love everything about that goal. It's not snake charmer. It's not hang out on the outside trying to make stuff happen. It's a guy recognizing the kind of game that it is, the kind of team that it is, and what it's going to take to score. And then that OT winner, I think that's one of those situations where, he's basically standing in the middle of a Winnipeg Jets triangle with the 2 defenders in front of him, one of them being Josh Morrissey. They've got back pressure coming from behind him. I just don't think there's a recognition at that stage of, this is Connor Bedard. The league is going to be learning what Connor Bedard is capable of, and that is one of those things. You can't let him shoot from that spot. It's that simple. And Ken nailed it, and he'll talk about it when he gets on the show here. The ability by Connor Bedard in that moment to kind of change the angle, to take away, Josh Morrissey feeling that he's got that path to the net, that shooting lane gone. We've seen it now. I think Connor Bedard is the only Chicago Blackhawk to score against the Winnipeg Jets this year. He's got 3 goals again against the hardest team in the NHL to score against over that stretch of time. The kid is special, no doubt about it. Hands down, there's nothing about him that screams, can he do this or will he do this? He is just chasing and getting very close to a point per game pace. And how many times tonight there was a semi breakaway that he threw a pass out and it was on the player's stick and the stick couldn't handle the pass. There was a number of times I saw him get the puck and look to make a pass and there was just no one in the right spots. If you put this player on the Winnipeg Jets with the tools that the Jets have, the Gabe Velardis, Mark Scheifele's, Kyle Connors, Nick Ehlers, Cole Perfetti's, up and down this lineup, Connor Bedard, I would argue, would be 15 to 20 points above a point per game pace if you had him on a team like the Winnipeg Jets. Anyways, that's all about Connor Bedard. We have to talk about him because he essentially steals the game away from the Winnipeg Jets here, a game in which I thought the Winnipeg Jets were the better of the 2 teams. Jets, I think undoubtedly it's not just in the shot counter, the attempts or the posts or all those different kind of things. The Winnipeg Jets were the better team on this night. They were the deeper team. Fourth line looked great. Lowry's line, I thought, looked, was grinding for the most part of it. There was those flashes here and there of Mark Scheifele's line where they just have that skill and that kind of sixth sense of knowing each other. Everything that makes the Winnipeg Jets good, including a couple really big saves by Connor Hellebuyck, was on display in this game. I guess I just kind of chalk it up to, the Jets were the better team in this one. And I think this is another time that we take a look at the Winnipeg Jets and think they lost a game, and yet they were the better team in that game. This is what is going to happen after a certain amount of games in the NHL, where the Jets play this style where they grind it and they keep it close, and usually they grind and they come out on top. Every once in a while, you can't win them all. So you're going to win some games that you don't deserve to win. Jets haven't had many of those this year. You're going to lose some games that you deserve to win. The Jets have had a number of those so far this year, but that's what you're looking for if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan, a team that shows well in their losses, not the kind of losses that suck the soul out of you. I mean, would you rather be the Winnipeg Jets right now, be the better team in a 2-1 game where you got a point, but oh man, we lost to the Chicago Blackhawks? Or would you rather be the Colorado Avalanche on this night, who scored 4 goals, blew that 4-goal lead, and lost in overtime against the Arizona Coyotes? That's the kind of loss that makes you kind of question yourself a little bit. There's no question about this Winnipeg Jets team. They stayed within their structure. It gave them ample opportunities to win this game. It just didn't happen. Not a big deal. You don't win them all, but the Jets are doing a good job of winning by vastly most of them and getting points in seemingly almost all of them, the way that they've been going for a long time now. That's my take on the whole thing. Let's bring in the man with the best music in the business. He's going to give you his take on the whole thing. And I forgot to say, Merry Christmas, everybody. Hope you're resting those turkey bellies the way that I've been. It's a great holiday for me. Hopefully it's a great holiday for you. So Merry Christmas to you before we bring in Ken and say the same thing to him. Here he comes, everybody. Ken, I spoke to a lot of people over the holidays, a lot of hockey players, who told me about all the things that how your skills go and kind of diminished even over those short couple of days. And they're so hyper attuned to it and how much they miss it. Well, I'll tell you, I'm hyper attuned to, and I'm very much missed your entrance music. It felt like I hadn't heard that in a long time. It was awesome to hear it. Awesome to see you. Still got the Christmas tree going in the background there. I see Mrs. Renny made me strike that thing at midnight on Christmas. Once Christmas is dead in her world, it dies really quick. But how are you doing, my friend? How are the holidays?
Great to be with you, Sean. Lots of gratitude flowing around these parts for sure. Got the little Christmas green going. Going to keep the tree up for a few more days for sure. And yeah, I mean, it's been an awesome few days of family, and yeah, really enjoyed it. And yep, Santa was great at our house, and I know the same for you. It was always nice to have hockey back for sure, but I think it was a good time of the year to take a break, to step away from the sport for a bit. And I mean, also too, we're feeling gratitude for our incredible, listeners, viewers, supporters. I mean, our last show just did absolutely bonkers numbers, Sean, as you know, like the game against the Bruins. We know it was something that took the Jets into the break nicely. And it was impressive to see everyone showing up there. I mean, crazy numbers on YouTube and on the download. So, I mean, awesome time of the year. It's the post-Christmas. The post-Christmas marker is fun because it's a reminder that things go quickly. The Jets are down to 49 games in this season, and once the next marker is the All-Star break, and once the All-Star break is over with, Sean, every other night, basically, it's like a 30 games and 60-day kind of stretch. I don't have the actual numbers in front of me, but it's the it's the most fun time of the year. and excited to be talking about hockey over this next little stretch here. So, interesting start. We know that the first game up, it's super bizarro land because you always expect a team to struggle at the beginning of a game, Sean.
Right.
But the Jets were kind of the opposite. They were incredibly sharp early, didn't give up a shot on net for nearly 15 minutes. And lo and behold, as you mentioned, I mean, the 3 for $1 special by Connor Bedard. And quite frankly, the second shot he had, I don't even think it's so bizarre because it's not technically between the legs, because by the time the shot is actually taken, he moves his leg to the side to give himself more velocity on what starts as a between the legs shot.
Right.
And then his ability to battle through after, putting his body in such an interesting kind of pretzel-y, kind of Gumby situation, he still sticks his nose in, as you said, gets to the blue paint. And basically, on both the goals allowed by the Jets, there are ample defenders in the area, but none of them take Bedard's biggest weapon, which is his stick. So incredible first goal. And on the second, Sean, I mean, you sort of you teased it incredibly well. My initial thought were two things that stood out. It's a 1-on-3, so I know a lot of people are up in arms about Scheifele. How come there's not better back pressure? Now, to a degree, you can understand that. Yes, Mark Scheifele has been a back-checking machine this year. Could there have been more back pressure applied? Yes, no doubt about it. But, Sean, we've been in these situations before, not defending against Connor Bedard, but in a 1-on-2 situation, there's not as much urgency. I'm not taking Scheifele off the hook completely here, but on a 1-on-2, you don't need as much back pressure because you think that the defenders have the situation in hand. Secondly, Josh Morrissey, could he have pressured Bedard a little bit quicker? Yes. But to me, Sean, this is about Bedard's ability to change the shooting angle. Morrissey thought, all I have to do is stick out my stick and poke check him or deflect it into the netting. Bedard tucks it to himself and then in one motion whips it past Hellebuck and Morrissey before they could adjust. So, yes, could the Jets have played it a little better? Absolutely. But I don't think they played it as poorly as what the slow motion replay makes it look like. Sean, am I wrong here?
No, not at all. In fact, I almost have, if it's almost any other player in the league other than maybe Austin Matthews,
yep.
And even if it's Connor McDavid, I'm okay with the way you played it.
Right.
The only people who are going to beat you, the only people that you played wrong in that situation are the likes of Connor Bedard, like I said, maybe Austin Matthews, who's got that ability to kind of change up that angle and really whip the shot from a spot like that. Maybe Nikita Kucherov, McKinnon, right? It takes a special player with a special release to be able to do that. And I think this is just one of those scenarios where I don't think, a player like Josh Morrissey has that book yet on Connor Bedard and knows that he's in danger in that situation yet. I don't mind the back pressure not being as strong as it was. I don't mind them sitting it there because what the Jets are trying to do is they're trying to put that player into a trap, and they're trying, and to a degree, Ken, they're believing in their goaltender, right? They're thinking our goaltender should be able to get like a clear shot from the high slot like that. I don't even know if it's a shot, Ken, that is used as a screen. He just pulls it in, finds an open lane, and just whips it right past Connor Hellebuck. So you're thinking in that situation that your goalie's probably going to have it. What you aren't yet realizing is, like, I think what a lot of people, it took the league a long time to figure out about Patrick Laine. Connor Bedard from a shot like that is extremely dangerous in a place like that. He's got a shot the likes of which most NHLers haven't really seen before, except for a select few players. The Jets are playing that to pull him into a trap and just try and get the puck back. OT is about puck possession. The Jets are just trying to bide their time, get the puck back, and go down and try and make something happen. And they just get burnt by a player who is one of the very few elite players in this world. I'm talking 5 players in this world who are able to take a situation like that and turn it into a dangerous situation, and that's Connor Bedard.
Yeah, now quickly, just a couple things. It was a long shift for those guys. Morrissey 101 and Scheifele, oh no, he just got out there. So I just kind of a little bit of a strange scenario there. But I don't, you know, and a lot of people are going crazy. I understand. But I don't think Josh played it overly poorly. I do agree with Greg Zamzow. The gap could have been tighter. And Sean, I think, like you said, I think the recognition is going to be there now for the Jets. Not that the Jets already know about Connor Bedard, yes, but it's one thing to see him. And here's the other thing, Sean. After Connor Bedard scored that goal against the Jets that opened the scoring on the game on December 2nd, they did an incredible job of shutting him down for the remainder of the game. Today, he was a little bit more dangerous, I thought. No doubt about it. There's a significant drop-off in the talent pool after Bedard. We know this. But he actually had a pretty quiet third period up until the overtime, for me anyways. But this is an elite talent. I mean, the Jets, they had 82 shot attempts. I mean, like you said, this isn't about shots or shots on goal or attempts. But, I mean, the Jets clearly had control of the majority of this game. Kudos to the Blackhawks for being ready to roll, and you know their goaltender Peter Mrazek kept them in the game and was fortunate. There were 4 posts and a crossbar in the game, so yes, that's a factor. But it's the other factor is they couldn't score. So, and both Vladislav Nemestikov and Morgan Barron said that after the game, and they were right. Those are the kind of games, Sean, where a greasier type of goal is required. They had opportunities. There were lots of nice plays. The Jets did generate plenty in the contest, but they didn't get the job done ultimately. This isn't a game where they go back and say, oh, that's a horrible effort. That's not a horrible effort. It's a game where the game doesn't go their way. Could they have been better? Yes. Did special teams cost them the game? You could argue that. Rick Bowness, quite frankly, said our power play was ineffective. Their power play, Sean, cannot be ineffective. They had 2 goals in their last game against the Bruins. They were both produced by the second unit. They were both produced by Nino Niederreiter. The top unit is struggling. There's no sugar coating this. I do think that further changes are required. We were surprised, Sean, both you and I were surprised when the Jets didn't do more than just flip out Cole Perfetti for Alex Iafallo, right? I mean, when Rick Bowness talked about structural and personnel changes, that is not what either one of us anticipated was going to be the move. I personally think that another move is probably required. Will we see that move on Friday? We know what Rick Bowness is disappointed. We also know Rick Bowness understands his team is now 8-1-2 in the month of December, and that he doesn't want to overreact to this. But he also knows that the power play needs to get rolling, and the personnel probably needs to change a little bit more. And a lot of people talking about Lowry. Lowry's job in that scenario was to win the faceoff. That's exactly what he did. He did stay on and stayed in the bumper for a little bit. That's true. But I mean, this wasn't a traditional promotion to the power play. But no. Adam Lowry did his job. He went out, won the draw, and then did his job in the bumper before it was his time to go off and change. So, is that something they'll consider later on? I mean, Mark Scheifele had a tough day in the circle. The other day he was dominant in the circle. He's been very good for the Jets, but tonight wasn't his night on the faceoff dot. So he went to Lowry, who was better. But right now, the second unit is moving the puck better. They're creating more lanes. They're creating more shots. And right now, the top unit's going to have to get going. I mean, this is as simple as it gets. I like the fact that Mark Scheifele, early in the game, Sean, he took the puck towards the net, but he didn't. He needed to shoot a little bit more, I thought.
Yeah.
I thought he needed to be. He looked like he was getting aggressive, but then he didn't finish the job. He looked for a pretty cross-ice pass. Too much stationary play, Sean. I mean, this has been a broken record at times for the top unit. They're incredibly talented. They know what they need to do, but they need to do it with confidence. And right now, they're not feeling a whole lot of confidence on the power play. So if that's the case, then I would think that a couple more tweaks might be required. You know, I don't overreact about this either. We know the top line has been out of its mind during that 5-game stretch. Today, I thought that there were some snapshots of that top line.
A close one. There was a close one Scheifele put to the net that looked like it was going in. I was surprised it stayed out. Yeah.
And 2 great chances for Gabriel Velarde. I think it was in the second period. There was a really good in-close chance. You know, I thought Nikolai Ehlers made an excellent play to find the trailer to Neil Pionk. So that line, they had some pretty zone entries. I thought that their chemistry was still shown throughout the game, but it didn't result in a 2, 3, or 4 goal game. That's not a concern for me. Not out here saying, oh, they had a rough night, they should be broken up. No, they had some chances. They weren't quite as they went through a ridiculous scenario where everything they touched turned to gold. Today, I thought they had some flashes, but they weren't quite as sharp. Now, that's to be expected after a 4-day break. I mean, Jets just weren't quite as sharp. That's natural when that happens. But the big thing for me, Sean, they've got a huge 2-game set here with the Minnesota Wild. So this was kind of a rust shaking off the rust type of scenario for the Jets. And now let's see what happens. I mean, if one of these 2 teams can sweep the 2-game set that is happening in a very short span of time, now all of a sudden you either have the ability to push the opponent down if you're the Jets, or if you're the Wild, they're looking to, they don't want to just sweep. They don't want to just split. They want to try to sweep also. So, I mean, again, most likely outcome is a split because these 2 teams are both very good. But if the Jets can find a way to sweep, they will be feeling very good about themselves. And if the Wild can find a way, then they would obviously think that they're right back in the heart of, not just in the race in the Central, but they feel like they're really turning the corner because we know they're already playing a lot better under John Hines. So to me, we kind of, and one other thing before we change gears, I mean, you talked about Vlad Nemestikov. I mean, I had a couple notes today saying, oh, this is just another great example that the Jets need a second-line center. I mean, I couldn't disagree more. I think Nemesnikov has... Fine. He has 3 goals. Big deal. Vlad Nemesnikov is we're both big baseball guys, Sean. He is a run prevention type of player. Like, Vlad Nemesnikov is not hurting the Winnipeg Jets in the role that he has been asked to play. He's doing an excellent job. And I mean, I would also argue with some of those folks that line is the 3rd line based on ice time distributed. So, I mean, could he produce a little bit more offense? Sure. But Vladislav Nemesnikov is not a problem for the Jets. He's played an excellent brand of hockey. He plays wherever you need him to play. And he's been a very effective centerman in his role. Could the line play a little bit better? Of course it could. But I don't think it played poorly by any stretch of the imagination. And Nemesnikov was one of the best players on the ice. And Nemesnikov was first to say, as Sparky says here, with bodies in front of the net. I mean, the Jets actually needed to do a better job of that. And both Vladislav Nemesnikov and Morgan Barron pointed it out quickly that that's what they needed to do. They needed a little bit more greasiness to their game. That hasn't been an issue for the Jets. They have been getting to the blue paint. Today, they didn't do a good enough job of getting there.
Ladies and gentlemen, you would have thought his belly was full of turkey and stuffing. Ken Weeb just went on an epic trip to the buffet. There's nothing that slows this guy down. Not the holidays, not any of those things, people. I'll just touch on a couple things because there was a wide swath of things that you touched on. Excuse me. I just wanted to get to the idea of Adam Lowry being moved there. I don't think it's a fluke. I think he gets put out there for sure to win the draw, but it's not a situation where, like, let's just put him out to win the draw and turn around and skate immediately off the ice. I know we talked about this. I know that some people in the chat room are suggesting that this is like, a moment here. Maurice that says, hey, Renny, Lowry got PP one time tonight. When you suggested it earlier this month and everyone here was making fun of you, I was also making fun of you. Yeah, it happens. And I guess guess this is kind of what I meant when I suggested this at the time. I don't think for a second, and I said it at the time, I don't think for a second that Adam Lowry was going to end up on the first power play. But I thought that if you wanted to send that message, guys, let's get to the net, that's what you would do. And I think that that's what that was all about. It wasn't going to be a full-time solution, but it was going to be, let's get Adam Lowry out there. If he can win the draw, get him up and around the net. And then let's see if the players just don't react and be like, just get the puck to the front of the net already. And they clearly missed the memo, right? Like it just went back to more of like possessing the puck on the outside. So I don't know. I take a look at Lowry in that situation. I think it made sense for them to do that in that moment, especially in that game where you could see if Mrazek was seeing it, he was stopping it tonight. That's what was happening. So you're trying to get a guy like Adam Lowry out there who maybe, just maybe, he'll keep him from seeing it in that situation. But to your point, we saw that a number of times from Mark Scheifele. And I would say if there's a weakness for Mark Scheifele as a hockey player, when Mark Scheifele is operating at his highest capacity, you can see he's a great defensive forward. He's a great center at possessing the puck and setting up goals. And like, you can just see it. Like I said, I've said this before, I think he elevates everyone around him. The one thing I would suggest about Mark Scheifele is last year he was scoring goals and he got on a real goal scoring track. And it's almost like his mind switched to that. And then it becomes all about shooting the puck and getting the puck to the net. But at other times in his career, I think he's kind of turned into the mind switched over to the passing Mark Scheifele, who we've seen do amazing things. And no one who would not be passing the puck the way Gabe Vilardi's been putting the puck in the net, and Nick Ehlers, and the way that line's been going. But tonight just looked like a scenario to me by which Mark Scheifele there was never a risk of him throwing the puck at the net. He was going to try and pass that for a tap in. That's how they were going to win this game. He was going to set it up that way. That one moment that you just talked about on the power play where no one was going to him. So he just moved in closer and closer and closer. And by moving in closer, he's waiting for someone to commit to him, and no one commits to him. No one opens up the guy in the bumper spot. No one, allows that seam to open up so he can pass it all the way across the ice for a one-timer for Nick Ehlers. At that moment, turn and fire the puck on the net, throw it into the pads, get a rebound, go jamming away at it, and have faith that you're going to get the puck back. It just seemed tonight like Mark Scheifele was intent on passing the puck into the back of the net. And I think, listen, every hockey player in the world probably would get sucked into something like this, where like if the passes are happening, if they're connecting and they're going in the back of the net, that's what you have a likelihood to do. But I would say that about Mark Scheifele. I think he gets switched and he's in passing brain and he's in shooting brain, and it's hard for him to adjust that for a moment in the game. That's what I was seeing out of that tonight here.
Yeah, and just one other quick one. I would have preferred, and not that Lowry did anything poorly, but in a game where they're struggling to get traffic, I would have preferred that Lowry and Vilardi switch spots there, Sean. Just get Vilardi down as the net front presence there and put Vilardi into the high slot, into the bumper. But I mean, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens as they move forward here. But yeah, there's lots of options to consider for the Jets, but I agree with you. And the other thing too, I mean, there's been a lot of talk. Even Rick Bowness said it. I mean, he said it the other day. This is the best two-way hockey I've seen Mark Scheifele playing. One of the other things that we saw and I know people don't want to talk about this, and I know it's a long time ago, but out of those 14 goals, Sean, during that 2017-18 playoff run to the conference final, several of those were from the high slot on power play setups from Blake Wheeler. So I do think that this is going to have to be something the Jets do consider. But we'll see if that's something that they actually will use. I know it's been something they've discussed in the past. They've tried it in the past, and I do think it's something that you don't have to put them there permanently. But the Jets are lacking motion, and when they have motion, Mark Scheifele in the slot is something that is an option for them to not only take advantage of, but to exploit with the opposition because he's so good in that spot. So. We'll see what happens and shakes down, but there's lots to dig into here as we move along. And yeah, I mean, we're almost halfway through already, and we want to talk a little World Junior. We want to talk about the fourth line and that too. But we should I was
Okay,
down
hold
to
on.
okay.
Before we do that, I gotta say it's a good thing that we're leaving ugly Christmas sweater season because Frankie and the boys of Vittorio Rossi, they don't do anything ugly. So they're sitting around being like, we can't get in on this. Sorry, this is just not what we do. We make you look like $1,000,000, and that's what they've done to us in the past. Not right now, Ken. We are more in ugly sweater mode.
Easy now.
Than we are in nice Vittorio Rossi clothing mode. But hey, if you want to ditch the ugliness and head on down for some great clothing, head on down to Corden Avenue, walk into Vittorio Rossi, loudly proclaim that Kenny and Renny sent you, ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. I'm also going to give the pristine
Just
wake
quickly,
up call.
I was there to see Frankie a little while ago last week. Saw Evan and Sammy and Frankie. Everyone is doing well there, and yeah,
AKA the boys.
Go see them.
AKA the
Exactly.
boys.
Yes.
Exactly.
Just letting you know I was in there seeing Frankie and the boys, and
there you go.
Store is ready for some end of season activity, and when the calendar flips, you might find a sale or two happening at the Vittorio Rossi location.
There we go. Hey, I also wanted to give a quick. This would have been a pristine wake-up call moment. I'm going to talk about a player who I think got the pristine wake-up call and then like turned it around, and that, of course, is Mrazek, who started out the game with that weird play, like a flip shot on net. I don't know what he was trying to do. It's like he had it in his glove and at the last second decided that he was going to headbutt it out and then missed it, or was he ducking? I don't know what he was doing in that situation.
Ducking.
If that would have gone in, that was insane. And I was looking, I was thinking, holy smokes, this is how you're going to start this game up. He clearly got the pristine wake-up call after that because he was phenomenal for the entirety of the game. And you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the pristine roofing wake-up call. Give him a call at 1-204-981-6289 for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. Yes, it's the holiday season. Don't worry about it. He may be there with a glass of rum and eggnog, some cookies, chomping away. Don't worry about it. You can get him on down there. But if you don't want to interrupt his holiday bliss, you can always call Pristine Roofing at 204-237-7663. I can't do it now. But Pristine Roofing, feeling in a generous holiday mood, are going to be handing out some tickets to the home renovation show here in town, Ken. I didn't even tell you that. So some stocking stuffers for everybody up and coming. We'll get them ready to go for the next show. And while we're at it, why don't you give Sweet Lou, because the crowd's already all over Sweet Lou. So give him a shout out.
It is the season. If it's the season for you to require some real estate needs, you can contact Lou Furlan at Rolla Page Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@loufurlan.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Furlan, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast, for which we are very grateful.
Excellent stuff. Okay, I was looking in the comments. I believe it's been called for. No, it was called. I didn't save it, but I don't think it really matters. Let's turn this into a Christmas holiday edition of the of a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. Okay, Ken, to me, fixing the power play, there needs to be a little bit more honesty from them in getting the puck to the front of the net. And I think it's just one of these situations where they just got to throw it in front and kind of get some jamming. And at least at that stage, those teams know that the Jet they can't just sit on the Jets shooting lanes, right? That's going to open things up. But I think it's not just as simple as that. If it was that simple, I think the Jets would have done that a little bit easier. Although I do think that they could be getting a lot more that they're getting based on that. But the Jets are using a very similar power play structure to that of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I do not understand why, after all these years that the Jets have been using a very similar structure, they don't try to build in more movement between the positions. Now, I get it. You've got one guy down in the bumper. You've got one guy in the high slot. One guy up in the high slot, one guy lower by the net. Mark Scheifele on the boards on one side, Ehlers or Kyle Connor on the other side. Josh Morrissey sitting up at the top. Now, Tampa's been using that for years and years and years, that very same structure. But what they don't do that the Jets do is they don't sit those guys in that spot and basically never move them. They almost play a shell game with those three guys in the middle where the guy in the slot gets the puck and he moves it to, so imagine this, the guy in the middle of the ice, if it's Alex Iafallo, gets the puck in the middle and everyone collapses on him so there's not a shot. And then he continues moving that puck along to Mark Scheifele for a shot. Or he'll grab it and he'll move it to Mark Scheifele as Mark Scheifele skates towards him. They'll converge in the same zone. And as they switch, Iafallo will pop out and Scheifele will move it to him. You'll catch those guys in the transition, just moving those three guys from spot to spot to spot. So what you're getting is you're getting a little bit of dynamic movement built in there while you're still keeping that same structure. But the Jets are keeping that structure as though it's etched in stone, and you've seen it before. They'll try and switch it here or there, but how many times on the power play this year have you seen Mark Scheifele sitting on the boards on one side? How many times have you seen Josh Morrissey sitting at the very top? How many times have you seen Kyle Connor sitting on the other side? Like it's just at a stage where the puck is getting moved to a spot that the opposition knows where the puck is going to be and expect it to be there. And so if they know where that puck is going to go, then they know where the passing lanes are that they're trying to shut down. And if the Jets aren't going to put it to the front of the net to try and create some chaos, then you've got a penalty kill that knows where the puck is going to be, knows where the shooting lane or the passing lanes are that they need to shut down, and knows where the shooting lanes are that they need to shut down. And if there's not going to be an attempt by the Jets to just push the puck to the front of the net, then there's no reason to jump off of those shooting lanes. So again, I think you can make this a lot simpler for the Jets if you just start getting the puck to the front of the net. But that's like, it's a little bit of a caveman answer. I don't think it's a bad thing, just trying to cram it down the other team's throat. But if you add that element into it so that teams have to be honest with that, and then you add a little bit of dynamic movement between the players who aren't married to the spots that they're set up like they're an X and an O and can't move their boots off that spot on the chalkboard. If they could get some dynamic movement going in there, I think that they could maybe freshen up what we're seeing is a very stale power play.
Yeah, I mean, Sean, you talk about Tampa. I mean, a couple quick things there. I mean, Kucherov and Point just both are incredible at the motion element on that power play. Hedman at the top, often, sometimes, I like Hedman at the top there. You have a one-timer option. Right now, with Connor out, the Jets don't really, they have guys that can take one-timers, but they don't really go to the one-timer when it's time for the power play. I'm talking about Ehlers and Scheifele. They are players who can add that to their repertoire, but we're not seeing it right now. The thing for me, like Point and Kucherov are absolutely elite when it comes to the motion element, and they'll also sneak, especially Kucherov on those side boards, Sean. He comes in and takes a little quick button hook and then shoots, like you're talking about, just to be dangerous. I mean, you have to respect it, and then once you respect it, now you open up the passing lane, and now Kucherov has all kinds of Sorry, I was looking for Sergachev. Sergachev sometimes taking some turns with that top unit these days as well. But right now they don't really have a one-timer option. I don't love the spacing. Scheifele and Morrissey find each other plenty, but they both need to be a little bit more dangerous when it comes to the shot lane. And they need to shoot a little bit more often. But also, too, the shots with traffic. It's not just shooting at an open... today was a great example. Mrazek had plenty of shots that he could see, and if there's nobody in his eyes, he was making a lot of the saves. So, yeah, I do think that it's just simplistic. Go back to simplicity, and I think that would be something that starts the Jets from rolling. And it is odd, Sean, because we are finally, as you mentioned, you've talked about this a number of times, and we've talked about it together. Scheifele and Ehlers are now finally getting some on-ice chemistry because they're playing together more. That for some reason hasn't really translated into finding each other on the power play. It's almost too forced right now. We saw a great example today. Scheifele kind of looked off three people, and then he tried to go cross ice, and it just was tipped over by the Blackhawks defender. So I don't mind that they're looking for each other, but right now they need to be a little bit more simplistic in their approach, and by being a little bit more aggressive in the shooting. I do think that it's something that can help get them going. I mean, the talent is obviously there for the power play to be effective, but right now I think they went into today 21st. Now, Sean, on the flip side, we've been banging the drum on the PK woes all year long. Today was the third game in a row where they had a clean sheet, and that hasn't happened often this year. So I mean, we do need to say that they are starting to improve in that regard. But I mean, 5-on-5 again is another, Sean, game 23 here. 23 games this year where the Jets have given up 3 or fewer, and most of them, 7 of those games of the 23 are with 3 allowed. Hang on, I got this here. I had it earlier on. Here it is. 2 goals on now 12 occasions, 1 goal 3 times, and 1 shutout during that 23-game stretch. Like, it's remarkable what they're doing at 5-on-5. But, we know which area needs to get cleaned up for the Jets in order for them to sort of take that next step, if you will.
All right, so you wanted to talk about the fourth line, so let's get to that. I'll let you launch.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, another day where what we're starting to see from the Jets, Sean, is very interesting. David Gustafsson can't go. He's got a lower body injury that he suffered in that game against Boston. David's been playing very well. Dominic Toninato, a guy who has not played a single game for the Jets this year because of circumstance, gets into the game and makes an immediate impact. He gets an assist. They have a great connection there, Sean, where he's the guy in the high slot and he rips a shot that's stopped and then goes off the post. He's buzzing around all night long, and I'm still actually shocked that he got up from when he took the puck to the net. And quite frankly, for all the tripping, kind of phantom tripping calls that were in the game, don't you think that was actually one of the more obvious? I thought that was obviously tripping. I don't think it was. I think it was more of an accidental trip, but Korchinski's stick is definitely in Toninato's feet before he goes plowing into the end boards. So, good on him for getting up. And I mean, this is a guy who's been waiting so long to get on the ice. So he's going to do everything in his power to get into the game. But really liked what I saw there. Morgan Barron up to 6 goals now in 33 games. It's a pretty solid number for a guy who's played almost exclusively. I shouldn't say almost exclusively, generally on the fourth line, but gets those bump up shifts in games. And Axel Jonsson-Fjällby, Sean, we've been talking about this for a few weeks now. Everyone knows Rasmus Kupari is closing in on a return for the Winnipeg Jets. Now suddenly Axel Jonsson-Fjällby, who looked like the easy choice to come out based on circumstance, has now worked himself. Now, again, today he only plays 8:45, no shots on goal or no attempts. But, I mean, he's disruptive out there. He gets involved in the forecheck. So, I mean, is he going to be a guy that Rick Bowness says, hey, let's get Kupari in there and see what happens? Or is he going to stick with a guy who's now given him a long stretch of games? Now, I do expect they would go to Kupari when he's ready and medically cleared to play, whether that's Saturday or not. Let's just put it this way. I expect Kupari to play in one of the games. I don't necessarily expect him in both in the back-to-back, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets one of the 2 games. Now, what will that mean for fourth-line competition? Well, Rick Bowness also said he expects Gustafsson to be ready for Saturday. So today, Dominic Toninato, 8:23 on 12 shifts. He had 1 shot blocked, 3 missed the net, 3 hits, 2 blocked shots. I mean, if you're looking to play a little bit more, you cannot, Frosty, you cannot send Rasmus Kupari down without waivers. So that will not be an option. They could consider a conditioning assignment, but I don't believe that's in play. Laurent Brossoit, I don't expect him to play Saturday. I expect him to play Sunday in the back end of the back-to-back. It'll be Hellebuck on Saturday in the home game, I would imagine. And we'll see what happens from there. But yeah, I mean, I love a lot about what I saw from the fourth line, Sean. It's been something that has been a big development for the Jets. The fact that they've been able to play their fourth line and are now getting some production from them is important. I mean, could they have played a little bit more today? Sure, but almost 9 minutes, as long as they're not in that 5 to 6 minute range, the Jets can't go back to those days, Sean, where the fourth line is playing 5, 6, 7 minutes of ice time. They got to be close to 9 and sometimes north of 10, and they've done that routinely this year. And I know sometimes the top guns want to play more, but it's fine. They need to be ready. Of course, they need to qualify first, but having a fourth line that can give quality minutes, it's incredibly important for them. And it's honestly, I think it's one of the reasons why they've been so much better at defending this year, the fact that they're rolling 4 lines.
Well, one of the reasons I would argue for sure that the Jets are this team that doesn't allow more than 3 goals and
Yeah,
hasn't for such a long time is the fact that their fourth line doesn't get exploited, right?
right.
Like
Exactly.
so many other teams come rolling into town and they're thinking, okay, we just need to wait for the moments in the game where they put out the weakest link, and then we try to exploit that weakest link. And you can definitely do that a lot more often when you're on home ice. That doesn't happen with the Winnipeg Jets. You want to be a team like there's a lot of nights where other teams' fourth and third lines will cost them 2 or 3, 4 goals a night alone. Just
Yeah.
those lines. That doesn't happen with the Jets. So if you want to talk about what makes this Jets team good, it's the depth that does not. It's going back to the system and Rick Bowness demanding. I think it's so interesting how he says this all the time. Ken, when every once in a while he'll come out with these lines and he'll say, well, it's what we demand of them. And that's just it. The fourth line doesn't get to go out and look like a lesser line when it comes to defending. We don't need you scoring all the time, although you did tonight and it got us a point here tonight, but we don't need you to do it all the time. But what you will do all the time, what we expect of you is you will defend like that. The amazing part of that, Ken, is the way that they've been able to switch guys in and out of this lineup. Toninato tonight
Yeah.
included, who looked absolutely phenomenal. AJF, who's looked great since he came in. The Gus Bus, who's looked great since he came in. I'll say it right now, Ken. The best versions, and I don't just say version, but versions of the fourth line this season have not had Rasmus Kupari on those lines. I'm
Not
going to
yet.
say it right now. Not yet. I'll say it right now, though. Rasmus Kupari is lucky that he's on a team that is the kind of team that when Kevin Cheveldayoff makes a deal, he wants to see those guys in the lineup right now. Because if I would suggest, if you were talking about the players who have produced the most, AJF has as many goals as Rasmus Kupari does. Gus has more goals than he does. Morgan Barron has more goals than he does. He's the center. He's supposed to be getting in on the points. That hadn't been happening with him. And because this line is able to maintain being as good defensively as they are with or without Rasmus Kupari in the lineup, everybody else who's getting an opportunity has been showing up in a way offensively that Rasmus Kupari has not been able to show up. Now, when Rasmus Kupari comes back, I fully expect him to go back into the lineup. Again, I suggest it is one of those things. When Morgan Barron is traded for, a lot of other teams would have sent him down and had some seasoning. He gets brought in right away because Kevin Cheveldayoff wants to show in that moment, this is what we got for this player. And Kevin Cheveldayoff wants to highlight this season, this is what we were able to get for Pierre-Luc Dubois. And he's got coaches that are amenable to that. But I'm telling you right now, I don't think this is, and you may be right, Ken, probably the best is yet to come. But I would also argue what we've seen so far from Rasmus Kupari in a Winnipeg Jets jersey is what we saw from him in an LA Kings jersey. There is no doubting it. In this year, that line has been a better version, more offensive version of that line with Rasmus Kupari out of the lineup than in it. But it is crazy to think of the guys who are continually rolling in and out of this lineup. Someone gets injured, someone else steps up. There is no flagging. There is no sinking by that line. Everyone is able to come in, and good job by the Winnipeg Jets. One of this is Scott Arniel going out and finding AJF and being like, this is the kind of guy that fits what you're looking for, Rick. And it's just time and time again, the Jets have added players who fit a role that they're expected to play, that these guys are all able to pull off.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that Kupari needs to get involved in the offense. I mean, that's exactly what Rick Bowness told David Gustafsson this summer. But I'm giving him more leash and I've seen a little bit more from him than what you saw in training camp. I know that's a long time ago. He's had 15 games, and to me, that's totally different scenarios because there's not as much of a spotlight on him. But I look at the struggles for Jonathan Huberdeau and to a degree Pierre-Luc Dubois, and I don't expect Rasmus Kupari to come in and shoot the lights out. Now, does he need to play better at times? Of course he does, but he can bring the Jets some speed. He does create opportunities, but you got to do more with those opportunities. You got to convert. If you don't convert, there's lots of players who play in the NHL that can create chances but don't convert. So I do think the onus is on him to produce more. But I do think that he's a guy that has some potential, and we'll see. I mean, he doesn't have to have as long a leash, but I do think that when a player is coming to a new scenario, he needs a little bit more of a runway. But I mean, because of what you discussed and because of the players who are playing well already within that system, he doesn't have a ton of runway. But I mean, he definitely is a guy that is going to need to get caught up to speed. And then we'll see what happens. And just a quick one, Morgan Barron just under 11 minutes there on that fourth line today. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when Kupari's back, but I do expect him to be in the mix. And I do think that he can contribute to the Jets down the road. And the other thing about this too, Sean, I know the system is different, but this is a responsible player that can also defend, and he also can give something in terms of the forecheck and his speed game. But yeah, I mean, he's going to have to produce a little bit more offense.
Well, and I guess I would say it like this. I know that there's a certain, hey, I know when I'm saying this, there's a certain amount of the population that is going to be up in arms about this. I'm looking at this from a player's viewpoint. David Gustafsson was told, like you said, in the offseason, you better produce or else, is basically what he was told. And what's he done? He's come out and he's produced. And I guess my take on the whole thing is there's been a certain, I'm not saying if you don't give Rasmus Kupari time and opportunity that over a certain amount of time, maybe he's going to get to a player who has, he hasn't scored in something like 48 or 49 games or something like that. I'm not saying that he's not going to get to be a player who will contribute and do this. But what I am saying is in the meantime, when Rasmus Kupari comes in and is given an opportunity and has not hit the stride that these other players have, other players are going to be taken out of the lineup to make room for him. And those other players, for the most part, have earned the opportunity to stay in that spot. Like if David Gustafsson, who came in and has played the way he's played this season, gets taken out of the lineup and has to sit, it's going to be a situation undoubtedly by which David Gustafsson, the better performing of those two players this season, will sit from the press box and watch a player who has not outperformed him for that job. Now, I don't see the Jets crumbling for a situation like that, like this. I get this, but I don't ever think it's a good scenario when guys are giving opportunities that other guys have earned. I think it creates frustration. I don't think there's too much of a worry when it comes to guys like AJF or Dominic Toninato, because those guys get their role. Those guys are just happy to be with an organization that they're one of the first couple of call-ups. Those guys are happy to be an organization where they get to collect an NHL paycheck every once in a while when it's time to come up, and you can see they just go out and hit it. So I don't think that this is a massive problem, but I'll say this flat out. If Rasmus Kupari comes in and David Gustafsson goes out, Rasmus Kupari is taking a spot that David Gustafsson so far has earned over Rasmus Kupari.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going a little bit wild here. I mean, I know what you're saying for sure, but I mean, there's no bigger proponent of David Gustafsson than I am. And David's been in the organization since 2018. So Kupari's been here for 5 minutes, like 15 games in his career. So right now he's 3 points behind Gustafsson. So I do think that the competition will be on. I think Gustafsson has earned a chance to stay in the lineup. There's no doubt about that. And I do think that initially he will stay in the lineup, and it'll be AJF that goes out. I mean, he's playing fine, but it's not like these guys are all racking up a ton of points. So I do think that there will be opportunity. I don't think it's necessarily a platoon, but I think that you got to give a little bit more leash to Kupari before we...
He'll get that leash. He'll get that leash.
And, QMJ says, let's have a talk about Appleton. I mean, Mason's gone. I think it's now 6. I'll double check here, but it's a long stretch without a goal. There's no doubt about that. I thought that actually that line was pretty effective early on. I thought that they were generating a few opportunities. But right now, Mason Appleton went from having an incredible start to the year offensively to, we talked about things went really silent for Alex Iafallo. Right now, Mason Appleton has gone through a little bit of a rough patch when it comes to offense. I mean, but he still has 6 goals and 17 points. And he had an assist against the Bruins, and he's got, 2 assists in his last 5 games. So I don't see that being a problem. Appleton does a lot of things that are important for a hockey team. Do I understand that he hasn't scored since November 18th? Of course I do. But at the same, I don't think that Mason Appleton is in a scenario where he needs to be concerned about being the guy sitting down for Erasmus Kapari. I just don't think that that's the case. He's a very good penalty killer, and he plays on one of the most important lines on the team. So I don't agree with our commenter on that one.
Well, so I'm glad they brought that up. Interesting, because I was on the record of this.
Sorry, 16 games without a goal.
I'd said before the season that I thought in order for that third line to truly become elite, they needed to replace Mason Appleton on it. If you're going to get Adam Lowry and you're going to have Nino Niederreiter out there playing on that line, I think that you get that's what I'd said at the beginning of the season. I've come out here and I talked about Kelly Moore, and I had a conversation. Kelly Moore said he just thinks so much had been interrupted with Mason Appleton and him moving to the Seattle Kraken, coming back, reacclimatizing to the Jets last year with the injuries coming out. And so at the beginning of the year, it looked very much like that was the case, that he'd broken out, he'd found his stride, and here he went. This is probably something we can expect. Like, the Jets are a team that finishes at an extremely high rate. And I think what we should probably expect over the course of the season is the pucks. Like, it's funny because the Jets don't score a lot, but it's almost like we should expect the pucks not to go in as much. Like, the Jets are finishing at a high rate, and Mason Appleton was finishing at an extremely high rate. But I think we're getting back to that scenario, right? Where it's the third line we saw when they were at their best and doing their best for this team was an offensive threat on a lot of nights. And I don't know necessarily if one is the cause of the other, but Mason Appleton kind of drying up offensively happens around the same time as that line is drying up offensively. And I don't think it's Nino Niederreiter, Ken, because there's been enough examples where you've tried to highlight when Nino Niederreiter escapes that line and gets with someone else, quite often he's factoring in on points, right? So Nino Niederreiter, I think we all know and expect if you put him on the first line, he'd score and he'd contribute. If you put him on the second line, he'd score and contribute. If you put him on the fourth line, he'd score and contribute. Adam Lowry is another guy who can run hot and go a little bit cold. And I guess my take on that is when you've got two guys like that, Adam Lowry who can run hot and then cold, and Mason Appleton who can run hot and cold. Two of those guys running cold for a while makes it hard for them to come out of that. So listen, I'll say it like this, Ken. The idea of breaking up the third line was an idea that we would not be, that I had suggested should not be looked at. Jason Bukala came on the show, had suggested we shouldn't be doing that. I would suggest before you break up that third line, or if you are going to break up that third line, the first move should not be Nino Niederreiter off that line. It should be someone else popping in for Mason Appleton to see if you can start the spark that we saw from that line offensively and see if you can get that going in and still have them with the ability to go and shut down the rest of the league. Like we said, Derek Lalonde, the head coach of the Detroit Red Wings, suggesting Adam Lowry is the best shutdown center in the game. Having a tool like that with the ability to still produce like they were at the beginning of the year makes the Jets an extremely, extremely dangerous team.
Sure, and I've never had a problem with that. But my bigger picture idea is it's more about providing an offensive weapon for Cole Perfetti on the second line. And today Cole's down to 13:31 of ice time, but he still generated 4 shots on goal in 5 attempts. So that's where I'm coming from on that one. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I think the Jets can do well with that line. But they still haven't found the recipe with all 3 of those lines going at the same time in terms of producing offense. But it's not only about producing offense, so I get it. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. We got to run through our stuff here.
Yeah, let's get at it. Johnson Group got you covered. Play of the game. I think you got a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one for somebody. Somehow the Chicago Blackhawks found themselves with what looked like a 2-on-0 in the last minute of the game. And then you saw a quick hook of the stick blade on Taylor Radish by Nino Niederreiter, and you saw an absolutely last second slash by Brendan Dillon, and the pardon me, the combination platter that was the hook and slash prevented Radish from what looked like a tap in. That would have been a regulation win for Chicago, and that would have heightened the mood in the old chat room here. But that combination platter is my choice for the Johnson Group got you covered play of the game.
I think you nailed it. Ken. I don't think I need to add to it. Kenny and Renny OGs at the Johnson Group. You know them, you love them, and hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more, and thank you to our friends from the Johnson Group, the Kenny and Renny OGs. Okay, moving on. The keg save of the game, Ken.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn still. I'm going to go honorable mention on the diving stab by Hellebuyck, who attacks Philip Kurashev and sort of makes a good save on that one. But I do think it's the breakaway save on Kurashev in the second period that really caught my attention. And just the timely. Yeah, of course, it was a tie game, I think, in both scenarios. But I thought, Sean, the reason why I'm picking the breakaway save is because it's the perfect example of what you and I have been discussing, Sean. You and I have been discussing how Hellebuyck makes a difficult save look routine. And this is another great example. So Kurashev makes a move. You think he's like, oh, why isn't Kurashev making a move here? He does make a move, but Hellebuyck doesn't bite at all. Right?
No,
he doesn't bite, which is why he's basically in the middle of the net looking big, and Kurashev is wondering why there's no room for him to score on. And I love the fact that he bats it away at the end. He's like, "Get out of here! Get out of here!" That's not even close to enough to get me to move. Batting it away, I think that was just an impressive save by Connor Hellebuyck. I mean, yes, Mrazek was great at times in the game, but I thought that save by Hellebuyck is just a great example of how well he has been playing this month. He's been absolutely exceptional. Sub 2 goals against, save percentage on the rise, and he's been really excellent. And he was very good again today, even though, yes, he gave up 2 goals, including a shot from distance. But let's look at the shot on the replay, folks, before you say that's a bad goal.
No doubt. Hey, that's Ken's keg save of the game. I agree with him. You should share with us your keg save of the game, because if you do, you're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate to any of the 3 keg locations here in Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And the winner from our last show before Christmas, that would be Matthew Thompson. You know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me your email. I will send you a $50 gift certificate to the keg, usable at any of their 3 fine locations here in the city. Each location finer than the last. I'd also like to let everyone else know who'd won them. We backed up things in the queue. Got to be a pretty busy Christmas season and broadcast season towards the end there. All of your keg $50 gift certificates should be sent out tomorrow. If you're the winners, that will be happening. The majority of your lamp lighters have been sent out, except for Matt Heinen and Big Hitter. If either of you are listening, I need you to get a hold of me. I didn't get your information, so direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Give me your full name and give me your email address so I can send that out to you. You don't do it, I'm going to give you 3 shows. Just based on the backup, I don't think either of them got a hold of me, Ken, which should mean that we moved it along to other people. I'm going to give them this show, next show, and the show after that. If I don't hear from them again, they're getting thrown out to the people who would have been getting them afterwards. So I don't know if people know who they are, but that's how we're going to do it. And that brings us, Ken, of course, to your TCB lamplighter of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, we're in full agreement on this one, too. It's the first goal by Bedard. Yes, the game winner in overtime is impressive for his ability to change the shot angle on the 1-on-3, but to me, it's what we heard about Connor Bedard, where might he struggle? Undersized forward. Can he get to the hard areas and score goals? Well, not only does he create the space to create the initial one-timer from Connor Murphy, he follows it up with an outstanding rebound play, which is a piece of I don't even want to call it a between the legs shot, because by the end it wasn't really a full between the legs shot, but just an incredible job of changing body position to get the second shot off. Then he continues to use the bulldog mentality that you mentioned in the text to me, getting to the second rebound and making it a full 3 for $1, shot at the circus, getting to the third one and burying it for the opener. And I just thought it was just an absolutely impressive. The kid's up to 15 goals this year, and he's almost a point a game player, and has certainly lived up to the hype. Yeah, he's living up to the hype, and the hype was incredibly high.
It's crazy because like the Winnipeg Jets are a team that you cannot beat single-handedly, and on both those goals, he's just basically beating the Jets single-handedly. Like that's a goal that and you know what? He scored a similar goal going to the net in the World Juniors last year, which we never got to talk about. We'll hop into that next show.
Yes,
but scored a goal right at the front of the net in the World Juniors. And I remember talking with Sammy about that, and Sammy saying like, this is just basically about the kid. Like everyone thinks that he's just like this because everyone remembers that really nice goal he scored where he walks the defenseman, goes in, dangles, and everyone's thinking, yeah, let's see you do that at the NHL level. Well, here's a kid who realized a long time ago, I am going to do it here and there at the NHL level, but I know that I can't do it all the time. So I'm going to add this into my game and this into my game. So it's the shot we know that he's capable of. It's his passing game we know that he's capable of. It's him grinding to the front of the net like we saw that. And I just think that is there's so many tools at his disposal. The shot clearly changing the angle. He got the Jets on the game winner. But this is one of those ones that, listen, this could be Game 7, triple overtime in the Stanley Cup final, and you can score a goal like that to win the Stanley Cup because he's covered. He's got guys all around him. He's just got more skill and more will than everyone else around him is why he ends up scoring that goal, which is why, Ken, I agree with you 100%. That is the Trans-Canada Brewing Company Lamplighter of the game. You should share with us your Lamplighter of the game, your favorite goal of the game, because if you do, you'll automatically be entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your very own 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, you just head on down to Trans-Canada Brewing Company on your own. You can join them in their tap room at 11290 Kenniston, where we will be having the January for Fanuaries. Pop that up there. This is the Eventbrite site that you go to get tickets. I want to say this. I am so thankful of the Kenny and Renny community and how they have turned every single one of our events into an absolute banger of event. You haven't let us down yet. Don't let us down in 2024. Don't start out 2004 by not showing up for Kenny and Renny. You got to come on out. We want to turn that into another big room event. It would be a blast if we did, because we know the last one was a blast. So January 22nd, it's a Monday night. Boston Bruins. You saw what the Jets did to them last time. Imagine being at a live Kenny and Renny event at Trans-Canada Brewing Company, slugging down some frosty, delicious lamplighters, eating some of their amazing pizza, joining the K&R community, loudly whooping it up as the Jets do it all over again. If that picture doesn't get you down there, I don't know what will. It's going to be great. So come on and join us. And it's time now for me to announce our lamplighter from the last show. That would be JetBoy59. So JetBoy59, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. I need your full name. I need an email. You get me those things, and I will get you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. And I'll tell you this, for the Chicago Blackhawks, before we do shut it down, well, hey, I wanted to say this. That Kevin Korchinski, I know you talked about what you thought was a trip. That Kevin Korchinski, I thought really showed. I think he's the 7th overall pick, Ken, defenseman for the Chicago Blackhawks. he's I've got a buddy who's a Blackhawks fan who's been like singing his praises for a long time. The first game I saw him, I thought it was like, okay, I'm seeing it. And then you see some of the rookie warts show up. I thought he played really, really well tonight. That's going to be a duo that is going to be a concern
overall,
for the Jets, a concern for the Jets in the Central Division for years to come. Those two draft picks really paying off for the Chicago Blackhawks. And if you are looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambridge Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt-free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. And I think that's it for us, Ken. I do want to say thank you so much for everyone who joined us during the holiday season here. I know it's not easy. I know a lot of you are not able to handle these after losses. Suck it up. We're going to get through it all together, people. Wanted to say, before we do go, if you appreciate the conversations happening in these spaces, please appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversations going in these spaces for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Furlan, Cambrian Credit Union, the Johnston Group, the KEG, and of course TransCanada Brewing Company. And hey, everyone brought it in the chat room as they always do. All those people I mentioned, get your info to me. I'll get you some frosty delicious lamp lighters. And we will see everyone after the next couple games. Ken, I think this is a huge set for the Jets because if there's a challenge for this Jets grinding system, I think it's going to be a grind fest between them and the Minnesota Wild, who are playing really good hockey as of late. And to your point, if Minnesota finds a way to get to the Jets and somehow beat them 2 straight here, they're only 4 points behind them in the standings. They drag themselves not only into the playoff conversation, but they start nipping at the heels of those top teams and turn it into a 4-team race for first place. This is stressful enough with the Jets bouncing up and down and all over the place the way they're fighting for first place right now. You don't want to add another horse into that race. So 2 huge games for the Winnipeg Jets. We are hoping you will join us right here on KNR after those games. Ken, something to say before we shut it down?
Yeah, if you folks kind of wondering, I just want to bounce it off of you quickly. The reverse hit by Ryan Hartman on Ehlers that knocked him out until late in that series against Vegas. Do you see there being some retribution, or is it still take a number of time given how important this double dip is going to be?
That's an interesting one. If you're asking me, I think this is okay. I think this is maybe Brendan Dillon territory, right? I don't know that maybe Adam Lowry tries it. I don't know that he goes with Adam Lowry. I could see there being a little bit of a situation like that, but maybe it only happens if it's not a tight game and the game is in hand. So if the Jets get to that position where they score an early goal, they start leaning on the team makes mistakes, they go up 3-1, 4-1 or something like that, I could see it happening at that time. But imagine, doing that, losing the handle on a game, and you end up, giving up your 3-goal streak and they score 4 goals on you. That's all we would be talking about, is the Jets lost their composure in this game. I think, one thing I did want to say before we go, the fact that this game here tonight, I know the Jets lose, but they come out the way they started that game, the way they carried the most of it. I'm fully convinced now, Ken, the DNA of this Jets team used to be snake charmer. That used to be their fallback. That's what went wrong with them last year. I'm convinced at this stage that the fallback DNA of this Jets team has now become this grinding system, and that's what they fall back to as a base of playing, and they build and add their skill out from there. So what we see against Boston is them playing that game and adding the skill. I think when the Jets aren't at the top of their game, they just fall back to the foundation, which turns into a grinding game. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose, but there's a reason this game is 1-1 going into overtime, because the Jets fall back the absolute foundation of what they are and what they return to now. And the reason I think they'll be successful going forward is because the fallback for them is defensively sound, protecting the house, grinding the other team, forechecking. Tonight, I thought, even though it's a loss, is another example of that. That's it for us. We hope to see you after both of those games. We will see you on the 30th after the Minnesota Wild play the Winnipeg Jets. Bye, everybody.